Professor Ramakrishnan also holds an adjunct faculty position in the Department of Heritage Science and Technology at Indian Institute of Technology in Hyderabad. Professor Ramakrishnan obtained his PhD in biomedical engineering and MTech in electrical engineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. And before that, he completed his undergraduate studies at PSG College of Technology. He is a fellow of Institution of Engineers and the Institution of Electronics and Communication Engineers, and a senior member of the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineer, USA, Indian National Academy of Engineering since November 2019. Professor Ramakrishnan also won the Manthan Award in 2015 for his project Madhura, the Gift of Voice, under the category E-Education, Learning and Employment. He is also one of the founder directors of Raghavera Indic Technologies Private Limited, recognized by Karnataka government as one of the Elevate 2019 startup winners. He is one of the advisors of Bhashini Artificial Intelligence Solutions Private Limited, also recognized by the Karnataka government as one of the Elevate 2019 startup. From January 2017 to 20, he was a member of Karnataka Knowledge Commission. And Professor Ramakrishnan's primary research interests include auditory neuroscience, decoding of imagined words, machine learning with particular references to handwriting recognitions, scene text recognition, speech recognitions, and not to forget neuroscience of pranayama. So may I request to please deliver his talk and educate us.
Thank you, Arkade. And thanks for invitation, and thanks for everybody who's listening at this late evening or a weekend. So let me start my slides. So I'm coming from Bengaluru. Sharing screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So don't worry about the topic. You know, they had given some topic, they're all related. So this is my promise. You know, if you listen to this, of course, you might have heard some of this before, because it's I see that it's a 10-day program, so there could be overlaps, which I'm not aware. So what I'm saying is, you know, when you listen to this, you know, your relationship to breathing will completely transform, because it transformed for me when I learned this. And you'll start wondering about your own body, its intelligence, capability, and mechanisms. You will clearly realize that breathing is much, much, much more important than your diet. See, a lot of doctors and, you know, entire media is always about what to eat, what not to eat, where to eat, you know, what to avoid, calories, this, that. Nobody talks about, very few people, especially from the medical field, talk about breathing. But I personally feel, you know, that's much, much more important, because you are breathing 24/7. Whereas we eat only 3 or 4 times a day. So it doesn't matter, you know, if you don't eat one day, nothing will happen. But if your brain is devoid of oxygen for 4 minutes, those areas of the brain will be dead. And without brain, you know, we are asking about that. So some of you may also get enthused to start research on certain issues related to respiration. And some of you maybe come forward to partner with me in my research, or link me with someone, you know, who is passionate enough like this, or arrange funds through, you know, some companies, CSR funds. So these are my indirect requests. So let us start with a question. You know, whoever is there, please feel free to answer. See, when somebody has, you know, overweight, let us say, and then they do something, whatever the mechanism, you know, they go to some course or whatever they do, and they reduce by 10 kg over a period of time, let us say. So tell me where that mass goes, because, you know, see, we accumulated slowly. You know, when we are born as one cell, you know, slowly, you know, initially 10 months we get food from our mother through the umbilical cord, and later, we eat all kinds of things, and then slowly the body builds up. So it's a mass is there, and the mass 10 kg if you weight, that mass, where does it go? That's the question. Yeah, please. Please attempt some answer. Nothing, all of us make mistakes. Nothing goes wrong. We will still be alive even if the answer is wrong. Let us interact.
It burns into energy.
Okay, it turns into energy. Okay. So is it like E is equal to mc square energy?
No.
No, actually the mass which gets reduced,
Right.
it converts into CO2, carbon dioxide,
Okay.
and it gets exhaled from the body.
Wonderful. Okay. Any other answers?
Actually, 80% it converts into CO2, and rest of the 20% it converts to sweat, which we see with our naked eye.
20% is what you said?
Through sweating, when we are doing any exercise or workout or any kind of exercise regime.
Salt, you
So
mean?
yes, so the fat which gets burnt out, the 20% fat burns into sweating, and the rest of the 80% it converts into CO2, and that same CO2 we exhale from our mouth. So this is how
Okay.
it
Okay.
works.
Okay. So reasonably correct. So let's go into this. See, I found very interestingly, there is a paper on this by two of these people, and it's in a very, very prestigious journal, British Medical Journal. When somebody loses weight, where does the fat go? Okay. So the impact factor of this journal is 93. My goodness. And he has a TED talk also. So, like he rightly said, see, I understand, I'm not a chemist, understand that, the fat mainly in terms of triglycerides, this seems to be the molecular formula. So when you breathe oxygen and when it burns, like he rightly said, in the different cells, it's converted into carbon dioxide and water. So it's not like 80-20, you can see that the molecules are almost same. Plus, of course, some energy comes out. The energy part is limited. It is because the mass, because of whatever carbon, see, the fat is basically in this carbohydrate. You have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, plus some oxygen is added. So carbon goes out through carbon dioxide and hydrogen goes out through water. Water can, of course, go through this thing, sweating, but it can go through other means also. So even when somebody, how fundamental it is, even when somebody reduces weight, it has to, the weight has to go through your breathing. So it's so fundamental. But, you increase weight through eating, but you reduce weight through breathing. And yogasanas always involve synchronized breathing. And in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, in the Ashtanga Yoga, pranayama comes after asanas and much before dhyana. There's a lot of people, people who do research, they work on some kind of what they call meditation. Some of them I won't even call meditation anyway. And on asanas, but there are very few studies properly on pranayama, especially on the mechanisms. So I haven't done a lot of original research. Recently we are doing, but I have gone through quite a bit of literature and tried to connect the dots. See, the body has 37.2 trillion cells, and I roughly calculate this is 4,700 times the world population. So we have so many cells, and each of these cells has a function. The heart cell has a different function, some kidney and so on, and each of them have a life cycle. The blood cells, they are born, within a month, they go and then again, and each of them has an input and output. So in Bhagavad Gita, 3.14, it says, Annad bhavanti bhutani parjanyat anna sambhava. Let's skip the rest of it. So all the beings means including, the trees and, insects and everything else, including us, the two-legged animals. We are all fully made up of food. I already told you, when we are born as one cell from our parents, where you cannot even see it unless in a microscope or something. And then slowly we grow. Everything is food. Initially it is the whatever mother, this thing comes through, later it is whatever roti, sabji, or maybe pizza. Okay. And interesting thing is every cell in our body has the same DNA. Even our hair has our signature DNA. So whatever we eat has to be finally converted into these unique cells, because any cell you take, it will have the same DNA of our person, and it is so unique. Whereas when you eat rice, the rice has rice DNA and wheat has wheat DNA. So we get what we put in, some of the things has so many ingredients and so many different DNAs goes, and within few hours, they have to be broken down at the molecular level or atomic level, and then it has to be converted into our body cells. So it's an amazing chemical factory. I just can't imagine. More and more, I think it's bewildering, and it has to be done for 37.2 trillion cells. The body is a computing device. It's a learning device. Right now, some of you want to learn, you're learning, and I'm communicating, hopefully. There are innumerable sensors around the body. We can sense any number of things, and our brain is programmable in milliseconds, and it's a self-repairing machine. So I feel one of the best areas for research is to study how yogasana, pranayama, and meditation reset, reprogram, and rejuvenate the self-repairing, what I call miracle machine. It's nothing short of miracle. And one of the titles of this talk would be Pranayama can even reprogram your genes. I'll tell you that later. So one of the things I was looking at during the COVID period was the Brahmari Pranayama, because I wrote, in June 2020, 3 years ago, that Brahmari Pranayama may have the potential to protect us from COVID and other viruses. And now I say that in general, pranayama may protect us from the vaccine injuries, so-called vaccines. They are not vaccines, I would call them vaccine candidates. None of them have been tested in the world fully. And also the long COVID. So I'm looking for research partners, great scientists, engineers, doctors, postdocs who are passionate not to work on such exciting areas. I'm praying to Bhagavan that I will get an opportunity to lead such a team. Now, why do I think Brahmari has this potential? So later we'll see that Brahmari increases nitric oxide 15 times in our body. So before that, let's get to what is nitric oxide. Happy to see in the top, yeah, fine. So nitric oxide inhibits replication of the coronavirus. You know that coronavirus, one thing goes in and then it multiplies very fast. And this nitric oxide is a chemical that can actually prevent that replication of the coronavirus. So that was published, not the coronavirus. The earlier version was SARS, which was there in 2004 or so. And 2005, this paper appeared in Journal of Virology that nitric oxide inhibits the replication cycle of severe acute respiratory symptom, that is that SARS coronavirus. So the same nitric oxide has other benefits. It's a vasodilator. That means, it increases the diameter of your blood vessels. And once it increases the diameter of blood vessels, then the volume increases, so the blood pressure goes down. And there are papers on this. You can see that later. All the papers, anybody is interested, I can send you those papers. And nitric oxide, for the same reason, is mixed with air to support premature babies with in lung insufficiency. They are not able to get adequate oxygen and they are not able to breathe well, then nitric oxide is added so that the absorption is more in the lung. Nitric oxide also induces neurogenesis. Neurogenesis means birth of new neurons or new nerve cells. And again, there are papers on this. Of course, most of these papers are based on rats because it's not possible for a human brain to check how many new neurons have come unless you in the current technology, you have to open the brain and, make sections and then study under microscope or other methods, which is easier on the mice they have done. So if there are neurogenesis, similar thing I assume will happen in India, in human beings. And when new neurons are born, especially they found that the new neurons are born in hippocampus, which is the primary learning part of the brain. And that is what is affected during Alzheimer's disease, which causes dementia later. So I feel that we need to study whether this prevents or delays Alzheimer's disease. And I will tell you what is the connection between nitric oxide and breathing. And interestingly, this nitric oxide is actually produced in the body. Paranasal license, see, you would have seen the sinus trouble and all that. We know the negative part of it. The positive part is, every time you breathe in, these sinus cavities, they preheat the air and they make it moist. They have many functions. But apart from all those functions, the paranasal sinuses are major producers of nitric oxide. So every time you breathe in, a small amount of nitric oxide which is created in the sinus cavities, is added to your breathing and it goes into your lung. So it expands the blood vessels there to improve the absorption of oxygen in the lung itself. So this Nobel laureate, Dr. Louis Ignarro, he got this Nobel Prize for his mechanisms. The second bullet, you can see the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine 1998 for the discovery of nitric oxide as a signaling molecule in the cardiovascular system. And in 1992, 6 years before, nitric oxide was proclaimed as a molecule of the year by the journal Science. So he says, there is a video of this person on the YouTube, you should see that. He says brain has more nitric oxide than the rest of the body. And nitric oxide promotes learning in the brain, memory recall. And he thinks there must be more functions of nitric oxide in the brain, such as better washing out of the metabolites due to vasodilation. And reduced nitric oxide can cause stroke through blood clots in the brain or a heart attack through blood clots in the coronary arteries. And he also says that slow breathing, see, when what they call ujjayi, that, when it slows down, you take more time to take the same amount of air to fill the lungs. So that means more time it is going through your nasal cavity. So it picks up higher concentration of nitric oxide that reaches the lung, facilitating higher vasodilation and better uptake of oxygen. Nitric oxide also helps to prevent and reverse high cholesterol. So now the connection of the Brahmari, Brahmari is a humming bee breathing, they call it. You inhale normally and then through exhale, you do a humming sound. The same sound that is there whenever any ma comes, like Om, it ends with a humming. Or when you sing a song by humming, you are doing the similar thing. So this person, his name is Lundberg from Karolinska Institute, Sweden, has done a lot of work on this. He does not know anything about pranayama or anything, but he's a specialist on, the breathing system. Okay. So he studied lungs and other related stuff, pulmonary system in general. And what he found is nitric oxide increases 15-fold during humming compared to quiet exhalation. So normally, if your nasal cavity is producing, say, X amount of nitric oxide, when you are humming, he found that it increases to 15 times. That means 1400% improvement. And we have already studied what nitric oxide causes. So, so by this simple breathing, you can prevent the replication of coronavirus, you can increase neurogenesis, you can decrease your blood pressure and so on. So that's why I said I proposed, in June 2020 in my talk to NIMHANS that nitric oxide should be tested for treating COVID-19. But I don't have any, I'm not a medical doctor, so I cannot test it unless somebody does it. But later in that year, there were many papers which appeared about similar topic. And much later, there was a Canadian firm called Sanitize. They claimed that the nitric oxide nasal spray killed 99% of the coronavirus. And it was tested in Canada and UK. So how about just daily primary practice being our vaccine? That's what I'm saying. And also, when I'm wondering about our ancestors, most of our prayer mantras contain Om, which includes humming. And there is a Vedic chant called Chamakam, where it always ends in me, Sanchame, Manaschame, Priyanchame, Kamaschame. So everything is may. So that may also involves humming. So was this planned by those great rishis to give us sufficient nitric oxide is what I'm wondering. And unfortunately, most the yoga researchers in India, they have not studied the mechanisms. They have studied a lot, what happens when you do this pranayama or this meditation or that yogasana for 3 months or 3 weeks. You record few things before and after and then say, yeah, it has increased. But my interest is, why does it increase? What does it do? What happens during the specific pranayama practice? I want more people to take this. I'm convinced that next 10 years, many things are going to be known about. It's going to be a very exciting area of research. So in that context, I want to define within the body what I call as signal to noise ratio. Okay. So signal to noise ratio is a concept originally proposed in electronic communication, like radio, TV, wherever you transmit signals through electromagnetic waves. You somewhere else, you receive your TV signals from the satellites, and it's going through thousands of kilometers. So what you receive is a very small amount of the signal, and in between, a lot of noise gets added. And so they look at what is attenuation. Suppose they send, let's say, 1 kilowatt of power, you may receive 1 milliwatt of power or 1 microwatt of power. So there is a huge reduction in the intensity, and also noise is added. So they had this defined this signal to noise ratio. How much of signal power is there and how much of other frequencies that are interfering with that. And only the signal noise ratio above something, you can recover the signal. So one of the other things that I can think of is, in a marriage party effect, when you are sitting in an Indian marriage, typical Indian marriage, there will be so many sounds, hundreds of people are talking, and then the Pandit is saying some mantras. Nowadays, they put it on a loudspeaker also. And you need to really attend to any one of that, because what you want to listen to one signal and all other signals are at that point of then is noise. So signal to noise ratio in communication or electronics is called power of the desirable signal divided with the power of the undesirable signal. So how do I define this with respect to human body? Before that, I'll tell you something. Now, I wrote an article on how coronavirus teaches us about meditation. So we already saw that body is a self-repairing machine, and it's very much part of nature. We are two-legged animal as much as any other part of nature. And for the body to be efficient, you must leave it in its pure natural state. And thanks to the lockdown, national lockdown or world lockdown, we saw that nature became pristine and regained its most natural state when the whole world stopped interfering with it. For example, people read about Ganges becoming clean and Yamuna becoming clean, or Rhine River in Paris. People have been spending a lot of time and energy and a lot of money, and nothing much happened. But man stopped doing whatever he's doing, and very quickly they became pristine. So I saw that, our meditation is a similar thing. Brain has so many noise, a lot of things are going on within the body and the mind. And in meditation, what do? You just stop doing anything with your manas, vacha, kaya. You just keep quiet, and then the body recovers to its pristine glory. So coming back, we'll connect all of that. So there is also a role of oxygen in the very tiny something. Yeah, okay. That is in between. So role of oxygen and carbon dioxide in the body. Our body is again trillions of cells are there, and it has been put together by from food and oxygen. And 99% of the body mass is only these few elements: oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. And our brain has only 2% of by weight of the body, but it takes 20% of the oxygen that we consume. And most of us in today, we live by our brain. So then you can understand how critical is this oxygen and therefore better breathing. So 1% of improvement in how you breathe will make a huge difference because you are breathing 24/7. And carbon dioxide is a waste gas produced when carbon is combined with oxygen. And circulation of blood and the respiration exchange oxygen from the environment for carbon dioxide from the body. This all of us know. So I read this from the site of Johns Hopkins Medical School, and they use hyperbaric oxygen chambers for healing people, who are not able to heal wounds. For example, somebody has a very high fire injury and the skin is lost. So it is very difficult for them to get free from the wounds. And they found that when they put them into hyperbaric oxygen, that is a chamber which has oxygen pressure with pressure higher than the atmospheric pressure, they recover faster. So I told this to one of my friends who's a neurosurgeon. Why don't we try this with other surgeries also? Because surgery is also a wound. So he said, yes, we will attempt this. So hopefully we will be testing this very soon. So now the connection of signal to noise ratio. So pH, it tells you whether a liquid is acidic or alkaline, and pH of 7 is the pure water, and pH which is negative is acidic, and pH which is positive is basic. And the blood is slightly basic because the pH is around 7.35. So the literature you can check, people say how to get acidic the basic water, add something to the water and something. So when carbon dioxide increases in the body, then when it's always in solution inside the interstitial fluid, and then in the solution it divides into hydrogen ion and bicarbonate ion, and this hydrogen ion concentration is what decides your pH. So you can see that there's a negative here. So when the hydrogen ion concentration increases, the pH reduces. So more carbon dioxide, more bicarbonate, and less is the pH. So it means more acidic is the blood. And acidic blood is not good for health. So my definition of signal to noise ratio is, it's my own, so don't look for this, it's not standard, is the ratio of partial pressure of oxygen in the blood to that of carbon dioxide in the blood. So when the blood becomes acidic, your signal noise ratio is low. When it becomes basic, signal noise ratio is high in general. So we'll come to what causes a reduction in this signal noise ratio and its effect. Before that, some of these practices, where you do forceful inhalation and forceful exhalation, they actually increase the number of muscles which are involved in the body from 23 muscles. Normal breathing, when you are not even aware of your breathing, the inhalation involves 23 muscles, and the exhalation does not involve any muscle. It's like a balloon. You need to use force to blow the air into the balloon, and when you have to exhale, you just release the balloon, it comes back. Whereas when you do the forceful inhalation and exhalation, from 23, you can go up to 89 muscles. So just by doing different pranayama, you are activating so many of your muscles. It's actually 14% of all the muscles in the body can be activated. And the other thing is, we have 31 spinal nerves, out of which 17 or involved in different aspects of the breathing. This is also very interesting. This I took from Khan Academy's website. You can see that, C1 to C3 is involved in some accessory muscles. C1, C3, C5 is, involved in diaphragm. D1 to D11 is involved in all the intercostal muscles. There are 3 pairs of, 11 into, so there are 66 intercostal muscles of different types. Then there are abdominal muscles, which you use in, forceful exhalation and so on. So it's very interesting. There are 89 muscles and 17 pairs of spinal nerves are involved in breathing. So you can imagine whether you call it Bhagavan or you call it nature, how much importance it has given to respiration. And apart from that, there are sensors throughout the body. Every cell, when it is activated, and then when you run, your heart rate increases because in the muscles, there are sensors which sense your, carbon dioxide level, pH level, and they send back information to the brain, and brain says, okay, it is coming less, let us increase the heart rate. So all this is all interconnected. The other thing is normal breathing can give you around half a liter of air. But with forced breathing, when you fill up your lung, it can go up to 4.8 liters, which means we can increase the volume of air inhaled by 9.6 times. Once again, when I first learned this amazing information, you can check this online or any medical books. And then one more thing, there is something called respiratory sinus arrhythmia. Whenever you inhale, the heart rate goes up, and whenever you exhale, heart rate comes down. And this is observed not only in human beings, but all the vertebrates. So active deep respiration constantly exercises the cardiac muscle, because every time you inhale, the heart rate goes up. Every time you exhale, heart rate comes down. So just by sitting in one place and doing deep breathing, you are giving very good exercise to your cardiac muscle, because constantly you are increasing and decreasing the heart rate. And we found that, heart rate can change up to 20 beats per minute by slow and deep breathing. And these are not very, extraordinary, swamis or people with so much of experience. Common people with maximal effect, we can change up to 20 beats per minute. So with a lot of practice, you can do much more. So this is just to tell you, how these things happen. This is recorded in our this thing. So we ask somebody to breathe in, then hold, exhale, hold. Of course, our the breathing belt is not a linear thing. So when they hold, there is a little change in that, but they are actually holding during this low slope. So you can see that when they are inhaling, this amplitude of ECG, that red one is the ECG, is coming down. And when they are exhaling, the amplitude goes up. And when they are holding, the amplitude is more or less, remains the same. So not only the heart rate changes, the ECG amplitude is also changing with respect to breathing. So a lot of things are happening inside the heart just by breathing. And we also found, interestingly, which gives rise to our current research, even when you are holding, there are some changes. Apart from this respiratory sinus arrhythmia of increasing, decrease during inhalation and exhalation, we also found that heart rate is also changing during hold. You can see that the blue is the breathing signal, red is the derived heart rate. It's not ECG. Now we are deriving heart rate and plotting it as a function of time. The breathing is relatively slow, and so there are many cycles of heart rate within one cycle of breathing. During this time, when you are not breathing, there is still heart rate is changing. And now we have recorded around 50 individuals, and it's happening for all the people. So, so this is so far as the facts, and now a little, extension. This is my conjecture, and I have also discussed with one of my friends who is working in IIT Madras. So they have done some modeling of what is called the basal ganglia, which is involved in Parkinson's disease. So in this basal ganglia, there are neurons which require much more, nutrition compared to the rest of it. In Mahabharata, we say Bhima, when they were in Ajnatavas, they used to get food, and half of it was given to Bhima, and the rest of it is again divided by Kunti 1/5, and again 1/5 is given to Vishnu because he needs more. Like that, the neurons which are called the SNC neurons, substantia nigra, pars compacta is the name. So those neurons seem to be requiring a lot more input than the rest of it. So in Parkinson's, they are affected, and so he is modeling it, and he's saying that because of energy deficit, these neurons are dying, and because of it, because they are responsible for the movement in Parkinson's disease comes. So I was asking him, see, whenever we inject a medicine, it's always injected in the hand or in the seat, but you may have disease any other place. So the body knows where to take the medicine. And similarly, after you eat, the heart knows that it has to pump more blood to the stomach. And when you're studying, it has to pump more blood to the brain. So once there is sufficient energy, I said, the brain knows that it has to give more to the essence. So how do I increase? By specific breathing. So there are papers now, a lot of people are studying this. Breathing is modulating your cerebrospinal fluid flow. Yes. So just by certain breathing, I can change the velocity of the cerebrospinal fluid is the equivalent of blood in the brain. So you can actually change the velocity of the blood, and also the very recently I found that it is also affecting the removal of toxins through the equivalent of lymphatic system in the brain, which is called the glymphatic system. So they are all related to breathing. So improved circulation of CSF in the brain results in the effective elimination of metabolic waste products such as beta amyloids from the brain, thus reducing the risk of Alzheimer's disease. So this we have to study whether people who do a lot of pranayam, whether they don't get any kind of this memory involved diseases at the end of their life, later years. So this is I was discussing with one scientist this morning. So he's working on this. The fMRI has shown the connection between forced inhalation and the removal of metabolites through the lymphatic system of the brain. I really don't know much about it, but he showed me some 20-30 papers. So this is something we need to update, but it's clear that it's doing a lot with this system also. And one or two brief things about what we are doing, having learned this, is one of my postdocs is working on classifying breathing states from the EEG only. We record breathing from normal people who don't know anything about pranayama or anything. So we give a metronome. So synchronized with that, they will inhale for some time and exhale for some time, equal times. So at different rates. And then the next one is inhale, then hold, exhale, hold. Again at different breathing rates. And then we are also do memory and we record and we are looking at it. So we are able to, distinguish between inhale, hold, and exhale, hold. The 4 states to more than 90%. This was the initial thing, which was only inhale, hold, and exhale, hold. Now we have included inhalation as separate, exhalation separate, inhale, hold, and exhale, hold as separate. So these 4 states, just if you give me the EEG, I can tell you, every second whether they are, inhaling or exhaling to the accuracy of more than 97%. We are writing a paper on that. And the other thing, another research student is studying the coherence. Coherence is the correlation in the frequency domain. So there is a coherence, direct coherence between the brain's electrical activity and the breathing signal. And this increases during, it's not always there, it increases during inhalation compared to exhalation. So these are, the waveforms from his work, Pradeep's work. So this black one is the breathing signal, and the red one is the low pass filtered EEG signal. And you can see that there is phase synchrony between the inhalation signal or the breathing signal and the EEG signal. And this is recorded in 3 different central electrode. FSET is frontal, central, and this is central midline, and this is occipital midline. So this is the waveform. This is the power spectrum of that. Again, black is the power spectrum of the breathing signal and power spectrum of the EEG signal. So now you can find out the correlation across different frequencies, and we can see that the frequency, the coherence is maximum at the rate at which they are breathing. So they are breathing at 6 cycles per minute, which means one cycle takes 10 seconds. So which means 1 by 10 is 0.1 hertz is the frequency of breathing. And at that frequency, the coherence is maximum. And this is showing only thing, but he has also looked at it, within the breathing cycle. So it is more during inhalation than exhalation. And this is true for all the breathing rates. But interestingly, of course, there are many studies now which say that there is something special about 6 cycles per minute. They say that that is the resonance frequency of our breathing system, or lung, you can say. And even heart rate variability is much higher at 6 cycles per minute compared to both higher and lower breathing rates. Here we are again looking at the mean coherence. So mean coherence during this 6 cycles per minute, this is 10 cycles per minute, is 4 cycles per minute. So when they are actually doing that breathing, and we are comparing with respect to the baseline, which means when they are not doing any specific breathing exercise, of course, normal breathing is going on. Compared to that, so what are this? Wherever dots are there, they are significant electrodes. And so you can see that in 10 and 4 cycles, they are not there at many points. Whereas in 6 cycles per minute, so all these dots, most of the electrodes, we have a 64 electrode EEG. That's highly significant in terms of coherence compared to the baseline. We tried comparing with different baselines. This is the initial baseline with the final baseline, and our this thing goes through different cycles. I told you, we do primary and different things. So in between 2 such these things, again we record a baseline where we don't do anything. And so with respect to any baseline, we can see that 6 cycles per minute it has very high, significantly high coherence. Whereas other things also have coherence. So breathing and heart rate and blood pressure. When you are not getting enough oxygen, you will experience host of symptoms, including fast heart rate. That's what happens, when you are running, the oxygen is being spent very fast in the muscles, and then it reduces, and then heart rate increases. So the reverse also should happen. When there is increased oxygen, reduced carbon dioxide level, so there should be feedback by chemoreceptors and to the cardiorespiratory centers. So the heart rate has to reduce, and the pumping force of the heart also has to reduce. So there are papers on this. Hyperbaric oxygen reduces the heart rate. So, and the less pumping force should result in blood pressure reduction. So this is a reason why certain breathing practices can reduce your heart rate as well as blood pressure. And there is an interesting connection to cancer. This biochemist, Nobel laureate, Otto Warburg, unfortunately no doctor talks about it. He proved beyond any doubt that cancer basically needs a low oxygen environment to survive. So what he did is, he created, he took a number of rats, divided into 2 groups. All the rats, he created cancer in a particular organ. And in one, he ensured that the tissue around the area where the cancerous tissue is there is getting sufficient oxygenation. Whereas in the other one, he left it normal. And so where the normal where no specific interest is taken to get sufficient oxygen, they developed further into cancer and they died after a few days. Whereas the rats, where he ensured that only the focal area of cancer is whatever it is, and around the tissue there is sufficient oxygen, the cancer did not develop and they survived for the period of the experiment. So, so it's really again worth studying, whether people who regularly do, pranayama, they don't get any cancer. We need to study this. There are no papers on that, but I think we need to study. So there is one study, of course, but on this is from Mysore. They studied that the breathing in 40 to 60% oxygen as opposed to 21% oxygen. Normal air has only around 21% oxygen. But if you add more oxygen, they found that it weakens the immunosuppression. It's the immune system, and there are immune suppression, and that is weakened, which means the immune system is improved, and it awakens the sleepy cancer fighting cells. So this is specifically with respect to breast cancer, but we need to make studies about. So this is on Science Translational Medicine, published in 2015. So coming back to the pH, I told you the normal pH optimizes enzyme action and a healthy metabolism. Prolonged abnormal pH leads to disordered metabolism. Observing a patient's blood and urine pH levels aids assessment, diagnostics, planning, and implementing care and re-evaluating healthcare intervention. This is what the British Journal of Nursing tells, to the nurses how they should take care of this. They should monitor pH for the patients. So, good breathing increases your pH by increasing your oxygen level in the blood. And one way you can reduce the signal to noise ratio, the way I define, is by drinking soft drinks. And in fact, I said I have published this in a paper which got selected as the first prize. Why the death rate per million is 8 times in the West compared to India. I said one of the reasons is there, apart from other reasons, is the high consumption of soft drinks. A soft drink typically contains carbonated water, sweetener and flavoring, plus phosphoric acid. So acid is directly added phosphoric acid, and then carbonation also gives you the bicarbonate. So it's highly acidic. I checked all the soft drinks, whatever you can think of, even the good ones you think, we have tested in our laboratories, in chemical laboratories, and they found none of them have pH more than 3. So the pH varies for all soft drinks in the market between 2 and 3. Whereas, the battery acid, the acid that is there in your car, it has a pH of 1. And the blood, I told you the pH has to be 7 plus, 7.3 around. Whereas people are drinking acid when they are drinking soft drinks, and they are actually reducing your signal to noise ratio. And I also probably think this is one of the reasons, again, not proved, people will not easily accept. This may be one of the reasons for the high incidence of colon cancer in USA, because, our alimentary canal does not have any branch. Whatever you eat goes out, except what is absorbed in your small intestine through micropores. So it's highly likely that many of this may not be absorbed by the body, because of which they live long. But that it stays in the colon for a long time, and then it might eat away and cause cancer. So it's again, my conjecture, not proved. The other thing I told you, it can change your the activity of your DNA, or it can change your genetics. That is the connection here. So this was published in 2006, that is 17 years back, in Discover magazine. The title says the new genetics. DNA is not your identity. All of us think, DNA is your identity. Every day there are new, this thing says that they have identified this gene as response for that disease and so on. I'm not questioning that, that's true. But just because you have that DNA, you don't have to get that disease. Only if the DNA is active and expressed, you will get it. Otherwise, you won't get it. That's why, if the parents, both of them have diabetes and have 3 children, all of them don't get. One of them gets, some of them don't get. So this is called the expression of the genes, and we can easily control expression of the genes, we can switch off the expression of the genes, and that is this field called epigenetics. So epi means over or above. So above genetic means how you can control, you can have control over genetics. And so this is another way of saying that it is the study of gene expression, how external factors can turn the genes on or off, or increase or decrease its activity. And this is taken from the NIH type, National Institute of Health, United States. So it says that your diet, thoughts and emotions, stress, etc., can alter the expression of the genes. Either it can switch on or off, or it can increase or decrease. And they have, in the studies on rats, once again, they found that when they, by some means, when they change the expression of the genes, the same thing is passed on to the descendants, even for generations after generations. So the positive aspect of it, so if you change your habits and you switch off certain bad genes, it will also go to your generation, next generations. So, so there are this, I told you there are the switches, you know, which you can switch on or switch off. There are actually the switches which can be switched on by certain things called histones and methyl groups. I'm not an expert on chemistry. Some of you can study, but all details are given. And we have, there are, the number of genes are only some 25,000, but the number of switches are 4 million. So there are so many controls are given for us to act. We need to be intelligent and use. So this is a slide I picked up directly from the NIH site. It tells you what are the mechanisms and which switch on or switch off a gene, and what are the mechanisms that, you know, increase or decrease the activity of the gene. So, you know, and it has connection to cancer, autoimmune diseases, mental disorders, diabetes, all that there. Very interesting studies. And how much this epigenetics can change our body and the gene activity. So this guy, Randy, proved it beyond doubt. He took, you know, identical twins, these two rats born to the same mother, identical twins. And he knows how to modify the gene activity, this epigenetics, by giving certain food which has what they call this methyl donors. You know, it is all of this. I don't ask me the explanation. You know, I can give you this paper, you can read, I can understand fully. But by giving certain diets, we can change the genetics, which means the activity of the genes. You can't change the genes, but you can change the expression of the genes. And after some time, you know, one of the twins developed like this, the another twin developed like this. You can see how much difference. Nobody can say they are identical twins. And this is only due to epigenetics. So even if you are born defective because of some genes, we can, this shows that, you know, by various things, you can change that. And they have also shown that there is an obesity gene. So if you have that, you will get it. But people have proved in a study involving 10,000 people that, you know, you can overcome this by epigenetics. Let's not get into it. I think I may be running out of time. So let me go further. So, yeah, I'm coming to the end of my talk. So this is an important thing. So this is a paper which was published in PLOS One in April 2013. They had 40 people in the control group, 40 people who did the certain pranayama and meditation. And it's just a 2-hour thing. So they tapped the blood before that and after that. So they found that in the yoga group, the expressions of 111 genes change in the lymphocytes. Lymphocytes are, you know, related to your immune system. So the immune system related genes are positively affected 111 genes within 2 hours of certain pranayama and meditation practices. So that is how powerful is pranayama to affect your gene expression. So now ending it, I feel every child must know the importance of this good breathing and this mechanism, so that, you know, they don't get it as, oh, it is good, but they know the mechanisms and it is good. So we need to introduce this in the school science books and remove things like, Panipat War and, how many brothers Aurangzeb or Shah Jahan Khan killed. We read so much of junk and not useful things. Also, we should also educate doctors, because doctors never talk about, like I told you, during COVID, I talked to many doctors. No, I don't talk about how to improve immune system. They said they have never studied that. So they only, one of my friends is a great neurosurgeon. He says our allopathy is sickness industry. So we come into picture only when somebody is sick. When you say how to improve health, we have nothing to offer. So we need to really make the improvement in the medical curriculum and make doctors study how to improve the health. I'm already healthy, but how can I become more healthy? And this is something we need to, and what are the various ways in which that can be done. So my talk would have achieved its purpose, if all of you who are listening to this, I'm sure many of you are already doing more pranayama and other practice than me. But if you are not for any reason, please start it today itself. And that will be the best way of achieving the goal of Fit India. We don't get better health by more hospitals. We get better health if you are not having to go to any hospital. So with that, I would like to end my talk. I thank all of you and Professor Akadev Datta for arranging the talk. I will be available, of course.
Thank you.
I have given very few time, minutes for the talk, but I will be available if somebody has questions.
Thank you, sir. It's a very captivating talk. You have opened all the facets of every corners of our physiological science, the facts, which will be very helpful to our audiences. And now I request the audiences to put their questions either on their chat box, or you can ask questions to Professor Ramakrishnan Rao.
I think they can directly ask. There are only 28 people I can see here.
So the Mandukya Upanishad and Swami Atmapriyananda.
Yes, sir.
The Mandukya Upanishad, A, U, Ma, Om, got three matras.
Yeah.
It says Amatras Chaturtha, Om. The fourth one, which is not a syllable or a letter, it is just a sound which tapers and ends there. It's called the Amatras Chaturtha. I also always been intrigued why this has been specially mentioned Chaturtha, and this is called the Turiya state, which is the fourth, with which the transcendental experience is mapped. So there is some connection with this, what you are mentioning about the humming part of it, rather than pronouncing a letter. We always know that the musical instruments not using the words per se,
Correct.
but the words are actually hummed on into the instrument, and the national anthem that is played. I used to be sometimes unpleasantly amused. Why don't they sing the anthem? They only play the anthem, and everybody sings in his own mind. So there seems to be some kind of connection between unspoken words which are being hummed, and that is equated with the Turiya state of the Mandukya.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from the audiences? So I have a question. So according to your view, how do you think that how rapid can be the effect of yoga on brain function? Someone, if he's studying the brain, the yoga, so how quickly one can see these changes regarding the functionality of the brain? A 15 days program, or a 1 month, or a...
See, I told you about this because there are not many papers, unfortunately, as I told you. But this particular paper, which I told you, within 2 hours, they have seen the changes in the gene expression of 111 genes. related to immune cells. So that is as fast you can have.
So functionally, it will be very fast, but regarding stability, there is a question, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's the fact. I mean, catching the changes will be a kind of very tricky thing because changes are happening, but at a very minute, I mean, small time scale, within small time scales.
Right.
So if he has been going through repeated practices, we can see the changes very consistent in them. So,
yeah, even though we may not be observing, it is happening very slowly. Like when somebody is, very stout and he starts, doing some exercise or something and reducing weight, the person who is in the family will not know it much because they're very slowly reducing, whereas somebody who sees them after 1 month, suddenly they will see that they have reduced weight. But it did not happen that after 30th day, it was happening every day. So, whatever is happening throughout, but, depending on how sensitive is your measurement, you can see that.
yes, that's the technology where we have to rely upon. Another thing, so I want to ask you is that the question is on, this is a nice work that you have been now pursuing about this coherence of the brain activity with the inhalation and exhalation, that is the breathing, with our normal breathing.
Right.
So where are you getting this coherence from actually, from the brain? It's on the superficial layer or you are going, doing some intracorticography?
No, we are only recording because these are normal people, and I'm not a surgeon or a hospital. You can't do any intracortical. Just surface EEG.
So it's coming from the superficial surfaces of the brain. I mean,
that I'm not sure because there are methods like inverse mapping. You can go from EEG to 3D signals like there's ELO radar and other these things are done. So source mapping. So if you do that, maybe you can see where is the source. But all that is available is only the surface signals. But you cannot say that it's only the surface thing. There are deeper, people who have studied in animals, they have found other, even in deeper things that this typically happens. But for a human being, we cannot record it.
True. Because piriform cortex, which is actually a very deep localized structure, it has got the entrainment with our breathing rates. So what we know is that this piriform cortex is near inside the entorhinal area, where these areas like the amygdala as well as the hippocampus, they are also lying. And so these areas are actually getting benefited with the kind of breathing that we are doing. So some facts like the cognitions, which is actually related with the emotion, with our emotional circuitry, if we see that if we are to train ourselves with positive breathing exercise, that definitely the pranayama philosophical texts that will define and we may get more insights into it, that may help. Because this piriform cortex, it's shown that it is having this kind of coherence, very significant coherence with our breathing rate. And this is actually being transformed.
So this is animal studies, you mean these are done in animal studies?
No, from in the human studies. These were done from, I think, 7 patients. You can check this paper. It's in the Journal of Neuro-Physiology.
So maybe during epilepsy surgery they have done?
Yes. They did this intracortical encephalography. So
only time where we can do this is, when they do this surgery for epilepsy patients, we can put electrodes inside. Yes.
Yeah, that was my point, because when you are using the 64 channel electrodes, so one thing is that with this high density electrode, you can find the source localization. That's true. So where is this source coming? So we
we'll be doing not immediately. We'll be doing some source localization and finding out where this thing. But like you said, it will be much more interesting to have intracortical electrode during some surgery. But it's all involved. You need to know surgeons and in India, unfortunately, the science or technical institutions and medical institutions are vertically divided, and then they say collaborate. I feel ideally, you should have medical school, the engineering school, and computer science, all of them should be in the same campus so that it's easier to collaborate, and the students should be able to walk in and then listen to talks in the other. Then it will be much easier.
So we would also like to collaborate with you because, yeah, that will be also very fascinating. So, any more questions? Yes, sir. Oh, no, please. There is another question here.
Yeah, I am available. I do.
Sir, how to measure the because we learned a very new concept regarding the effect of NO and its relation with the nervous system. So how we can measure the sir, nitric oxide?
See, right now I don't have the thing with me, but the Chitra Tirunal Institute in Trivandrum, they have been funded by a project by TST Satyam, and they have imported some instrument. I don't remember the company or anything. It just costs 1 lakh, and you fit it through the nose, and it can capture the exhaled air and measure the contents and see how much nitric oxide it is.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for your for tomorrow.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
See you on tomorrow's session.